Greetings, Starfighters. Take 4 of the video intro for this episode. Switching channels. Burt Reynolds, Kathleen Turner, Christopher Reeve. Looks to be a rom-com with some love triangle bullshit. It's really more of a love corner, as the old joke goes. But hey, you never know. It might be a pleasant surprise. Can't make out the director's name on here. The print is too tiny. So, hopefully this episode is not coming out 2 months after the last one. This season has been, it is partly my fault that we've had the gaps between episodes this season, but also real life has just been kind of kicking us over here at the Arkle Studios, here in the Boing Loings. So, but fingers crossed we can get this thing back up to monthly. I think I might actually just not take a month off between season 11 and 12, to try and get us back on track. Maybe I'll get super lucky and you're actually seeing this episode at the very, very end of December. Probably not, but, fingers crossed you're definitely seeing it in January, or it's definitely posting in January if you're seeing this in the future. And, I'm rambling, and I don't really have time to do another take, because I'm about to head out to go see War of the Rohirrim. Switching channels, and then after that we can do a season wrap-up episode. That'll hopefully not take 2 months, and yada yada yada. I've already covered all that stuff about the time. Yeah, I need to shut up now and just go into the watched the movie segment of the episode. Is it just me, or am I getting worse at these intros?
And now I have watched Switching Channels from 1988. Plot summary courtesy of Rotten Tomatoes. Cable news anchor Christy Colleran, Kathleen Turner, and her cagey boss John L. Sullivan, Burt Reynolds, have a long history together. They used to be married. But now Christy is set to leave journalism and her ex-husband forever by moving to New York City with her fiancé, retail mogul Blaine Bingham. Yay, I got it right this time. Played by Christopher Reeve. Since Sullivan still has feelings for her, he hatches a plan to keep Christy around by assigning her to a hot news story she can't resist. While searching for a plot summary I could use for this episode that wasn't just a single sentence or front-loaded with spoilers, which was way harder than you might think, I discovered that this movie is, in essence, a remake of the film His Girl Friday, one of the most beloved of the screwball comedies of the 30s and 40s, which itself was based, loosely, on a play called The Front Page. In fact, The Front Page is listed as the main source for this movie in the opening credits. This made me trepidatious. I think I used that word right. Going in because, I'm going to be honest, I didn't actually like His Girl Friday all that much. I didn't hate it, but as the screwballs go, it kind of irks me that His Girl Friday is so much more beloved than Preston Sturges's The Miracle of Morgan's Creek. Although I suppose that wouldn't be a surprise to anyone who follows me on my Letterboxd page, because Miracle of Morgan's Creek is in my top 4. Still, I will do my best to judge this movie on its own merits. In fact, expect this segment of the episode here to be the last place where I even mention His Girl Friday. First thing I noted, Ned Beatty has returned. We last saw him back in Physical Evidence. Ned was one of several actors Burt Reynolds would work with on the regular, though Beatty seems to be the only one we get in this set. No Dom DeLuise. Which could be good or bad depending on your preferences. Dom was a funny guy, but some of the scripts they'd give him, especially in the later days of his career, did not do him any favors. But I digress. Speaking of beloved comic actors, Henry Gibson is in this movie too. Anyway, the opening credits play over Kathleen Turner's character, Christy, already mentioned back in the summary, doing her job over the course of what appears to be multiple days, including almost falling asleep at her anchor desk before being elbowed by her co-anchor at the last minute. This all culminates in her breaking down and having a laughing fit after covering a story about 15,000 kazoo players being connected electronically, so early internet basically, for the president. We meet Bert's character, John Sullivan, often referred to as Sully, at this point, when he agrees with someone on the phone that Christy needs a vacation. We transition over to said vacation, where Christopher Reeve as Blaine enters the film, when he and Christy have a meet-cute when she accidentally sets his credit card on fire. It makes sense in context, but it's also less funny in context. Make of that what you will. Shenanigans happen, including Blaine coming to Christy's rescue when she loses her paddle while out on a lake in a canoe. The triumphant music when he shows up in his motorboat feels like it should be funny, but it just isn't. A lot of things in this movie feel like they were supposed to be funny, but aren't. I'll go ahead and say that right now. For instance, the abruptness of the cut from Blaine asking Christy out on a date. Again, supposed to be funny, but it just feels jarring instead. And it's not even the fact that it's a jump cut that makes it like that. I mean, look at this bit from Futurama.
I think I have a scheme so deviously clever that $500 and time served. Stupid anti-pimping laws. Well, pay the man.
Bender, honey, we love you.
Shut up, baby, I know it.
In that instance, the joke works because of how sudden the jump from scene to scene is. Here, it's the exact opposite. We lose out on what could have been a short and maybe even funny scene to help flesh out two of our three leads. It didn't even need to be a long scene. You could do it in under a minute. Anyway, this is the whirlwind romance segment of the film. Christy returns to work, bringing Blaine with her, yada yada. Christy tells Sully she and Blaine are getting married, they bicker, and man, this movie wants to be a throwback to the Screwballs so bad. But despite Turner and Reynolds being good comedic actors, I know, I've seen them do it in better movies, they just can't make this work. I am not amused by any of this. At least not at the moment. Sully meets Blaine, yada yada, macho posturing. You've seen this kind of movie before, probably. Sully pulls all sorts of dirty tricks, of course, such as having one of his employees booking every flight going from Chicago to New York for the next 24 hours to keep Christy and Blaine from leaving. Even in the late 80s, when planes had fewer passengers per flight than the cramped tubes we have now, that's still a gigantic number of people getting fucked over here. In fact, I think they actually say later in the film that it was over 6,000. Yeah, I wish Sully's name was David, so I could use that song clip again. We learn the backstory of a death row inmate that's been getting referenced throughout the film up to this point. Specifically, that he went out to shoot the man who had sold drugs to his son, which had led to his son's death. But the dealer turned out to be a cop, and, well, the movie's not wrong when it says that even when he's selling hard drugs to high schoolers, cops still don't like you killing one of their own. This, of course, leads to the story Christy can't resist thing, and it works with even Blaine saying it's a good thing to do if it could help save the man's life. Honestly, apart from being kinda snooty about food, I'm not yet seeing much reason to hate this guy. I mean, he's a tool. I would not be friends with this upper-class twit if he was real, but the movie is really going to have to work hard to make me feel like he deserves to get dumped at the end, which I think we all know is what's going to happen here. Though maybe we'll get lucky and Christy will tell both Blaine and Sully to fuck off and be happy on her own. As the movie goes on and more shenanigans happen, John spots a self-help book about curing a fear of heights in Blaine's suitcase, and I groaned so loud you have no idea, because I already knew where this was going. Sully has been trying to sabotage this relationship between Blaine and Christy from the second he'd heard about it. So far, the movie is trying to present this simply as him thinking losing her will hurt the news network, as she's his best reporter, but come on. After this, Ned Beatty, whose character is running for governor, and was the prosecutor who put this guy on death row, finds out that Christy is getting an interview with the guy on death row and is not happy about it. His effort to prevent it fails pretty much immediately, and the guy who killed his son's drug dealer is played by Henry Gibson. This is, I'm curious to see where this goes. That's certainly casting it against type. casting against type, not casting it. Why did I say it like that? I don't know. Anyway, Gibson is playing this straight, and it's not bad. But the thing is, this is supposed to be a comedy movie, so I'm a little thrown off by the tone here. Arguably the most experienced comedic actor in the whole movie isn't even trying to be funny. I mean, it's not bad. I want to be clear about that. It's not bad. Henry Gibson is doing a great job in this. It just feels like this whole sequence is kind of in the wrong movie. Anyway, after the interview, Christy leaves. We see that Henry Gibson has managed to sneak part of her pen away. It makes sense in context. He was showing her a magic trick because he and his late son were both into Houdini. This is going to obviously facilitate an escape later. We go to one of Sully's assistants taking Blaine to a store, at Sully's insistence, of course, that's on the 17th floor of a tower, which, of course, is Sully insists there's a store there. We find out later there isn't. And this is all the payoff to Sully seeing the Fear of Heights book. And, yeah, of course, I was about to say, of course, an 80s movie would play a panic attack for laughs, but let's be real, movies still do that now. Yeah, we've still got more than an hour left in this movie, by the way. Oh, why did I start doing this show? We go from the panic attack that's played for laughs to a sequence where a bunch of characters we never met before argue about newspapers versus TV news, yada yada. We get more whiplash, which is something of more mood whiplash, which is something of a running theme for this movie. More attempts at being like the Screwballs happen with mixed results. I mean, I got a couple of laughs here and there, but yeah. The interview gets aired, and we are given a comedic montage of people watching it. And this actually might be the perfect summation of this movie's tone problem. Because the interview is very serious, but all the stuff with the people watching it are meant to be funny. There's an amusing moment where the owner of the network calls in to complain about the use of the word ass. But the humor is short-lived as we get another montage that isn't funny, though it's trying to be, of citizens calling to tell the governor to pardon Ike. That's the name of Henry Gibson's character. Yada yada. I'm just waiting for them to get to the escape at this point. I mean, again, Houdini got name-checked in the interview. Ned Beatty tries to arrange to get the execution moved up after learning the governor is planning to pardon Ike, and he plans to televise it. I don't think that's actually legal, but whatever. The press swarm the prison with reporters shoving each other to each try and get a front row seat to the electrocution. Our main characters learn about it, but Blaine and Christy leave to catch a train to New York. The escape hasn't happened yet. We see Ike being read his last rites. They get him in the chair, and I'm really wondering why the escape hasn't happened yet. I mean, even this dumb movie wouldn't go to the trouble of showing him pocketing part of a pen. Ooh, I got that line in one take. Nice. If it wasn't going to mean something. You know, that alliteration wasn't even on purpose. Anyway, the buttons for the chair are pushed. I don't know if this is how electrocutions normally worked, but the deal was we had like 3 buttons. Only one of them would actually activate the electricity, but you had 3 people, each with their own button. Ned Beatty has a really gross line where he says, "Oh, I hope it's mine," after being, Anyway, where was I? I lost my place in the script. Where was I? Okay, the buttons for the chair are pushed, but the fuse is blown because of the large number of camera equipment plugged in. And honestly, they're lucky they didn't start an electrical fire with that mess, because I'm not even an electrician, and looking at that massive wires gave me anxiety. But this is when Ike escapes, and so I don't need to point out the problem here, right? Because I didn't get the order of events wrong. He took the pen well before the execution time was moved up and the press was invited to it. And even though the lights were out, that room was crowded AF. So, what was his plan if the lights didn't go out? Anyway, Ike gets over the prison wall somehow, but hurts his knee on the way down. Christy spots him as her and Blaine's car had stopped outside the jail since it was on their route to the train station. Christy gets out to chase him, much to Blaine's annoyance. We've still got about a half hour left in the movie. Wow, I skipped over more than I thought. Anyway. So Christy gets Ike into like a press office in a courthouse building, something like that. We saw it earlier in the movie. And she calls Sully, and the movie tries to be wacky again, which almost works. But the lack of any music for the part where Christy hides Ike in a copy machine undermines the vibe. We get a montage of reporters rushing into the room and calling their bosses, and each one tells about the escape, and every single one of them wildly exaggerates or even just flat out makes up details, which, it hits me that this movie is kind of trying to have it both ways when it comes to commentary on journalism. Like, it kind of goes out of its way to say that TV journalists are awful and care more about sensationalism than the pursuit of truth, while having its heroes be TV journalists. This is reminding me of Streets of Blood back in season 4. For those who haven't seen that episode or just don't remember, the TLDW is the movie wanted it to have both ways on police brutality. So yeah, this scene is stupid. We get Blaine at the train station waiting for Christy, shenanigans with Ike hiding in the copy machine while journos are trying to make copies, and just when you think the shenanigans are over, they restart, and I just want this movie to be over. Ned Beatty takes a small army of cops through the building, knowing that Ike's there, but not what room, and they're just shooting every door as they go along, which is actually pretty accurate. We cut briefly back to Blaine, and then back to the office, where we get Ike in and out of the copy machine at least 2 more times. Blaine shows up, and he's being a bit of a tool, of course, though I can understand being a little frustrated. And this whole segment just won't end. Please, movie, get out of this room. Get the guy out of the copier. Wrap the love triangle. Please, just end. Stuff happens. Ned Beatty realizes Ike is in the copier and is about to order the police to shoot through Christy and Sully to get to him in front of multiple cameras. And again, I could totally buy that the Chicago PD would shoot 2 unarmed journalists in front of witnesses, even before Rahm Emanuel was mayor. I hate that I still get to see that guy's name in the news sometimes. What the fucking... Ugh. Where was I? Right. So they shoot the copy machine, but one of Ned Beatty's aides, raising concerns about the optics, had bought enough time so that when they open fire, Ike's already gone. Though Christy and Sully don't realize this right away until the other reporters start mocking Ned Beatty. After this, Christy and Sully manage to trick Ned Beatty, and yeah, I know his character has a name, I just cannot for the life of me remember it. But they trick him into confessing about stepping up the execution to get around the governor's pardon on camera. And because this is fiction, a crooked politician actually faces consequences when caught on camera admitting a crime. But my social commentary aside, this is a fun scene, actually. Especially with the warden of the prison trying to warn Ned Beatty that the camera is on. The warden of the prison was in on the plot to try and move up the execution and to also try and stop the interview. But the warden is unable to warn Ned Beatty because he's currently wheezing from a heart attack. The movie ends with Christy about to break up with Blaine, but he breaks up with her first and is actually rather mature about the whole thing. Which is shocking, as up to now he'd shown a little bit of a possessive side, but he seems to just sort of accept that Christy actually genuinely does care about the news business, and leaving it behind to go to New York would not make her happy. And then Sully basically, after Blaine leaves, Sully basically asks Christy to remarry him, and she goes along with it because they were already... This was hinted at earlier in the sequence. And, why not? Sully has managed to be a decent person for about the last 10 minutes, which is a record for him in this movie. At least we're ending mostly on a high note. I still think it would have been a bolder choice for the movie to have Christy decide to just stay single, but whatever. The end. Random thoughts I had while watching the movie. 1. Christie's vacation was 3 weeks in Canada. That's how you know this movie is fiction, pure fiction, because, any American who isn't a multimillionaire can take a vacation longer than a week. 2. It took 14 minutes for this movie to get to a joke that actually made me laugh. The joke was just simply the word no, but it was the context in which the line was being delivered and the way it was delivered that made it funny. You're just going to have to take my word for it, because we don't do clips on this show. Well, not clips from the movie. 3. Christie's speech after the interview aired about politicians needing to be brave enough to forgive and not just be a macho hard-ass for the sake of the polls is certainly a powerful message, and one I think a lot of real-life elected officials could stand to hear, just not from this movie, because the message will be lost in all the tone whiplash. I know I harped on that a lot, but for real, this movie is like if the writers' rooms for Gilmore Girls and Law & Order accidentally got mixed up for an episode. 4. I'm pretty sure I know the actor who played the governor from somewhere, but I don't care enough to look it up. Oh, never mind, I just saw his name in the credits. He was on Murphy Brown. Man, that's a show I haven't thought about in a long time. I think they did a revival season a few years back, but I didn't see it. How did it turn out? 5. This movie had sitcom-style end credits for some reason. Okay. Why not? Final verdict. I was so blindsided by how good the climax was, well, mostly good, that I'm almost at a loss for what to put in this section. I spent more than an hour just being frustrated with this movie because the jokes were hit or miss, to put it kindly, and the dramatic parts were fine on their own, but felt out of place, like they were meant for a totally different movie and there was some kind of mix-up. And the tone was all over the place for the most part until the finale, when it focused on the comedy and was better for it. Even setting aside that I'm not a fan of love triangles to begin with, this one in particular felt like an afterthought. Like the movie they had wasn't going to be long enough to get a theatrical run. And so they just had to slam something in there. As you probably gathered, neither of the prospects for Kathleen Turner's character are grand prizes. A snobby elitist goober on one hand and a petty entitled man-child on the other. Honestly, Ike would have been a better choice, but he was already in a relationship with his defense attorney. But, when it comes to love triangles, I've seen worse. And then there's the social commentary of the movie, which is inconsistent, seeming to both praise and condemn television journalism at the same time. It also rightly criticizes the death penalty, but undermines that message by not seeming to understand how it works. I'm reminded of an SF Debris line. I'd rather you disagree with me intelligently than agree with me while chewing on your own shoe. I guess, at the end of the day, I don't hate this movie, but the fact that it took me so long to come to that conclusion is a knock against it in itself. Would I recommend this? I guess if you can find it for free on a service like Tubi, or if it happens to crop up on YouTube's free movie section for a month or two, not having to pay to see it would probably help. And in the interest of fairness, not pausing it periodically to get screenshots for your YouTube show would probably make it more fun to watch too. So yeah, that was Switching Channels, a movie where I switched from strong dislike to grudging respect by the end. That's what passes for humor on my show. Tune in next time where I will be hopefully equally as funny for the Season 11 wrap-up. Have fun and, now more than ever, stay safe.